Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you and thank you for joining for our first virtual health professional network for Tigray, HPN4T Pledge Drive for 2021 on this Super Bowl Sunday.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to our first ever virtual pledge drive for HPN4Tigray. We're glad to see everybody here today. On this call, we have community grassroots folks. We have non-NGO people on the ground. We've got other organizations to speak on the situation of Tigray today. I want to provide a disclaimer, if I could take a moment. You will hear and see some sensitive things today, and it may be triggering things as well. I know we're all sensitive right now, but please sit back, relax, and try to listen or try to understand some of the perspectives. Listen to the people who are in pain during this crisis. We will present and hope that you will take action and get involved by pledging today. It's an honor and a privilege to introduce the next guest, the next person that's about to come up. She is our founder and president of HPN.
سلام حواتي كمي حاجركم كمي وعدكم أبزز اللخموة كبرن سلام إناني حبكم سلام نسيزنا يخون. Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being part of this very important cause. Thank you for being part of this thank you for being part of a solution to this very dire situation that our people are facing. Salaye, thank you so much for the generous introduction. To those who don't know me, my name is Rushan Tesfai. I am an emergency medicine resident at the Ohio State University here in Columbus, Ohio. If I may say a few words to introduce HPN and what has meant to me and how it has come about. I was actually born and raised in Adigrat, Tigray, Ethiopia. And I grew up during the war, 1998 war. I was just a child in elementary school. And I remember running for my life from air bombings. I remember running for my life from airstrikes. I remember traveling to schools that were 2 hours or more away, barefoot, attending classrooms in caves and surrounding villages, so it's safer for us during the day. This was because some schools were getting bombed with airstrikes, and it wasn't safe for us to have classrooms. This went on for good more than 2 years. So I am sharing this story because I know this is not a singular story. I know this is not just my story. This is the story of Tigray. This is the story of a lot of us here on the call. I know it's generational, it may be from different generations, but there is this cycle of trauma, cycle of destruction that Tigray faces every now and then. And when the war broke out on November 4th, I know all of us were traumatized, all of us were shocked, all of us could not believe what this meant for our people, that this meant another round of destruction, that we couldn't stomach another generation going through the same trauma and the same pain and the same displacement and pain and life loss that we went through. Personally, first few days were extremely difficult for me, and I know I'm not alone. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I kept waking up with nightmares, thinking that passing cars were air bombings, honestly. And I couldn't stomach it, that there is another generation right now crying out for their lives, running for their lives, lack of food, lack of healthcare, and are suffering, and the suffering gets worse by the minute as we speak right now. So after so much screaming, after so much praying, after so much screaming out to whomever could help, we thought, what can we do as health professionals, as people here in the US, relatively safe, that what can we do to help our people? And this is how HPN came about. I may be the one who reached out, who screamed, but I figured out that there was a host of community out there screaming the same, that wondering how can we help our people. So this is how HPN came about. This is how HPN was born. It was born in a time of despair, time of crisis, but it has become a sense of hope and and a way of figuring out how we can help our people. HPN might have started from like few people, starting from me and few others like Kasai, Dr. Jonas, Dr. Samhal, and Dr. Elias Sela, to name the few. It has become a network of over 200 people health professionals and people from the business sector, and it has become what it is today. It is such an honor to introduce HPN, and to introduce HPN means to introduce the great people behind it, the people that are working tirelessly, people like Sela. I could not emphasize I cannot emphasize how grateful I am to meet her. She has taken this cause and taken it under her wing and tirelessly working for means to figure out how we can help our people. To introduce HPN means to introduce the countless individuals who've been working tirelessly to make partnerships, to really figure out how we can save lives wherever they are in Tigray or outside seeking refuge. I would love to say the great things that are about our individuals, including Dr. Mez, who also has taken this organization under his wing and molded it to what it is today, but it will take me the whole day. Thank you so much again, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us.
HPN is a nonprofit, non-religious, and nonpartisan organization. It is made up of volunteers from the health and other sectors in the diaspora who are committed to improving access to healthcare and other humanitarian needs in Tigray, Ethiopia, and beyond. HPN was established in 2020 in light of the humanitarian crisis caused by the war in Tigray. Today, HPN has over, as you heard earlier, 200 members. I'd like to take this time to also reiterate that the HPN is not affiliated with any governmental agency or political party anywhere. And its short-term goal is to help during this emergency humanitarian crisis. And long-term is to remain organized, galvanized, and ready to participate in the rebuilding and rehabilitation of Tigray and beyond. The next slide that I'm going to get into is about some of the projects that HPN has worked on in the past. HPN has been working closely with Doctors Without Borders, who are working in the refugee camps in Sudan, where over 60,000 Tigrayans have fled to. Donations have been sent specifically to these camps. Because of their relationship, HPN has become privy to data and information relating to medical needs of those within the camps. HPN is currently accepting donations as well as donations in kind in the form of medical supplies per needs assessment. For daily updates on the status and the condition of the refugees in the camps, please follow HPN4Tigray on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. In regards to donations in kind, we do have a hospital in California that has donated medical supplies that will be sent to camps, refugee camps in Sudan. I would like to now take this time to introduce you to one of our very own members who will be presenting, Helena, who is our community liaison and medical media specialist. Sorry.
Quite all right. Here are ways you can get involved and help the people of Tigray. Donate, fundraise, promote. This is skills-oriented organization. So volunteer, donate your skills, lead the subgroups. Please donate right now as we are on the call. You can write your donation in the chat box, raise your hand to announce your pledge on this call, or go to HPN4Tigray.org and donate via the donate button. As soon as we're done with the call, please go to HPN4Tigray.org to submit your payment. Fundraise. Please stay tuned for fundraising in the future. And we are accepting future fundraising opportunities again through our website, HPN4Tigray.org. Amplify. Amplify our organization via social media. We are on Twitter as @HPN4Tigray. We are also on Instagram as well as Facebook under the same handle. Please like and post.
Thank you, Madia, for that introduction, and thank you all for taking the time to be with us today. It's a pleasure to see all your beautiful faces and hear your voices. Today, February 7th, 2021, marks the 96th day since the war started, resulting in widespread violence and unrest that has entirely engulfed the Tigray region of Ethiopia, leading up to numerous accounts of human rights abuses, violations, and devastating humanitarian crisis. And according to UNHCR report on February 2nd, 2021, they showing that there are more than 60,000 refugees flooding their homes into neighboring Sudan, and of which you can clearly see women and children have been disproportionately affected, leaving about 2.3 million children in an immediate need of aid. And to make even things worse, there is an information blackout right now, inhibiting any kind of humanitarian aid workers from entering to Tigray, except few areas to deliver life-saving assistance. And despite numerous calls for action from state leaders, international humanitarian organizations, religious organizations, and all concerned individuals throughout the entire world, access to Tigray remains incredibly hindered. And you might have seen in the news this week as the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, called up on the Prime Minister of Ethiopia for an immediate, full, and unhindered access to Tigray to prevent further loss and devastation. Even though it's extremely difficult to assess the full scale of humanitarian crisis right now due to the information blackout, international organizations like UNICEF and its partners were able to conduct some sort of needs assessments, particularly in the central parts of Tigray, in the Shire area, showing that there is a high rate of severe acute malnutrition, mounting up to 10% among children below the age of 5. This is far above what WHO normally considers an emergency threshold of 3%. That could put potentially thousands of children's lives at risk for increased morbidity and mortality because of complications from severe acute malnutrition and lack of healthcare access. With such staggering scale of humanitarian disaster, life-saving assistance remains to be hindered in Tigray to the day. And with that thought, I would like to introduce our next speaker, Jonathan Kapede, who is a VP of operations at a hospital in Dayton, Ohio, and a member of HPN. Jonathan, take it away.
Thank you, Samad. Good morning, everyone, and a good afternoon for those that live in the East Coast and such. I want to say thank you for all the attendees, especially those guests that are curious to hear about this and put your own facts and hopefully come to action. I also want to take this opportunity to really thank a lot of the members that came before me, the founding members especially, that put really tireless hours after hours putting this together, as well as gathering many hundreds of people from all corners of America, as well as I know I've seen several people from international countries as well that have joined this cause. And I'll get to my guest that I'm going to introduce, which I'm very excited about, but I wanted to just kind of give a quick overview why I got involved in this organization. So as Samhal said, I'm the Vice President of Operations for a health system here in Dayton, Ohio. I've been doing this job for 12 years. And I would say, if somebody asked me why I got in healthcare, I will tell you that this was because of a personal conviction that I have, which I've lost my mother, who is from Tigray area years ago because of healthcare complication. And that conviction led me obviously to a professional in healthcare, But I would absolutely say this was the first time, and this has only been probably a little over a month that I got involved in, the first time that I truly felt like I got an organization that was able to actually provide me that opportunity to really connect to that moral obligation and moral conviction that I set my my career to go in. And yes, I've heard of the Rwanda genocide, and yes, I remember the 1985 famine that happened before, but they were just history in a book that I read or an article. Now to see it unfold like this, it's quite shocking, but at the same time, an organization like HPN is the only organization that I felt like I could actually do something about it. And so to those that, as Selena said, it's not just about money. Obviously, money is absolutely needed, and that's definitely something I will continue to support. But there's also a lot more when it comes to pledging that we can all do. So I got involved in to see anything that I can do from my resources and my knowledge base to my time, because I think history is going to judge us. A few years from here, I have a daughter who's 3.5. She's going to grow up and she's going to read this in her history book, and she's going to ask me, and I want to make sure that when I have that conversation with her, that it's going to be genuine, that I've tried my best and I've done my best. So I don't want to get emotional here, but that's definitely why I wanted to get involved in. And so I think what I would ask everybody, obviously we have 92 people here, is there's definitely something you can do. Whether you're close to it and whether you have family connections or not, there's absolutely something that you can do. Even if it means just retweeting or sending your representative an email or mail or whatever. So I would implore you all to do your part here. So with that, as part of that, my apology, as part of the leadership in the advisory committee, one of the things that we really talked a lot about is the allyship. And I would absolutely say we have one of the best allies within ourselves with Maggie, Rachel, and Anna. And they're going to go through in the next few seconds here about their presentation, but I want to make sure that you all know who they are. We got connected with them because they're graduate students at University of Notre Dame that are actually doing their graduate studies in global affairs, and they all have different backgrounds, but this crisis has certainly brought them all together. So I want to do a quick intro, and I want to make sure that I get their background right. So Maggie's going to be speaking first. So Maggie is a first-year graduate student at the Global Affairs program at the University of Notre Dame, and she's concentrating on human rights, and she's served as a youth development volunteer in Peace Corps in Morocco. And she's going to be giving us a quick overview of the timelines as well as chronicling some of the major things that happen. And followed by Rachel, who's also a first-year student in the Kroc International Institute of International Peace Studies at the University of Notre Dame, focusing on conflict mediation and transitional justice. And she's also served as a Peace Corps volunteer in the country of Georgia. And last but not least, Anna's going to speak on conflict transformation. And Anna's also a first-year student in the MGA program, and she's also a Spanish specialist. And because of that experience that she's had, we're also going to give her a little bit more time to reflect on her time over there. So with that, I'm going to give the stage to Maggie.
Great. Thank you so much, Jonathan, and thank you so much to HPN4Tigray for including us in this super important work. As Jonathan said, my name is Maggie Kmetz, and I'm going to start today by giving just a very brief outline of some of the global responses to the conflict before diving into an abridged version of the conflict timeline. So as Jonathan said, our involvement in this project started as independent research at the University of Notre Dame, and HPN invited us to collaborate on some advocacy work. So we've been following the conflict since its inception on November 4th of 2020, and we want to stress that due to the continued communications blackout across parts of Tigray, information is still difficult to receive and verify. So in the short time that I have today, I want to jump right in and begin with the United Nations. So the UN has consistently voiced concern over the past 3.5 months, and there have been aid workers distributing aid in the terms of medical supplies and water and sanitation initiatives. We call these WASH initiatives in federally controlled parts of Mekelle. In December of 2020, the European Union delayed about 90 million euros in budgetary aid to Ethiopia in an attempt to force a response from Prime Minister Abiy, who up until that point was ignoring the EU's calls and international probes about the growing humanitarian crisis. And come January 2021, the European Union completely suspended that aid. Prime Minister Abiy has been receptive to discussions with the African Union Special Envoy, but has rejected at least 3 times 3 of the AU's mediation offers. And on December 21st, 2020, the African Union said that Prime Minister Abiy's military actions were, and I quote, legitimate. The United States has consistently expressed an interest in mediating the conflict should either side be interested. So I'd like to move over now to the timeline, which you see on the slide in front of you. And we recognize and acknowledge that this is just a very quick snippet of the 3.5 months that this conflict has been going on. So it seems to be that there are almost 2 competing narratives here. The first is Prime Minister Abiy's version of the conflict, which in his view has only lasted for a very short time, from November 4th until the 28th of 2020. The second version is that the crisis is ongoing and that it has actually been much more violent than Prime Minister Abiy has disclosed. And we know the latter to be true from several credible sources, including the International Crisis Group, the United Nations and its affiliates, as well as refugees and survivors currently in Tigray and Sudan. So the conflict began on November 4th when Prime Minister Abiy accused the TPLF, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, of attacking a federal base in the northern state of Tigray. And he responded by mobilizing troops and ordering airstrikes on the region. This continued for a few weeks before he declared victory over Mekelle on November 28th, 2020. And so between November 28th and mid-December, and then again in the period after the United States introduced legislation to the Senate, we see a somewhat idle period where aid organizations are just trying to get into Tigray to distribute the aid. And we hear this repeated refrain of growing concerns of the humanitarian crisis. And during this time, we're also seeing a large number of refugees fleeing into neighboring Sudan. On December 9th, a Senate resolution was introduced to the 116th Congress, and the title of that resolution is on the slide on the screen right now. The resolution essentially is calling for a ceasefire from both parties and urges both parties to pursue a peaceful resolution to this conflict. From December to January, our team actually started to see the conflict fade from mainstream media as outlets focused on stalled GERD negotiations, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, the Sudanese border dispute in the Al-Fashqa Triangle, and a locust infestation that is plaguing the entire Horn of Africa. And so jumping to this past week, the US was part of a closed-door meeting with the United Nations and a few other countries. And the next day, February 3rd, Secretary of State Tony Blinken had a phone call with Prime Minister Abiy, where he voiced his concern over the crisis and urged unfettered humanitarian access. And just yesterday, Prime Minister Abiy released an op-ed to Project Syndicate, where he reflected on the events from this past fall and is actually now calling on the United Nations and international aid organizations to get involved and bring aid to Tigray. So it appears that the events of this past week are signaling a change in this conflict, but at this point, it's just a matter of time before we see exactly how these events will impact humanitarian organizations' ability to access Tigray. So up next, Rachel is going to discuss the humanitarian efforts so far.
Oh, okay.
Rachel, can you unmute yourself?
Now I can. Sorry, it wasn't allowing me to. So thank you again to HPN4Tigray for having us. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the humanitarian response. So the organizations listed in this first bullet point are some of the key actors who have attempted to meet the needs on the ground so far. And the overall estimates of how many people have been displaced across northern Ethiopia vary widely due to the communications blackout that has been previously discussed and the lack of humanitarian access. But a common figure that we see is around 2 million people total displaced. And the UN has put the number of people in need of humanitarian assistance at about 2.3 million, but some estimates are even higher. And again, it's hard to get an exact figure because of the limitations. And as we've already discussed, over 60,000 refugees from Tigray have sought refuge in Sudanese camps across the border. The UN and other humanitarian actors, as we've discussed, have faced continued resistance from the Ethiopian federal government to doing their work. Aid workers have been unable to reach Eritrean refugee camps. They have been able to reach Eritrean refugee camps only in the southern part of Tigray, not the 2 camps that are in the north. And I've seen estimates varying from 15 to 30,000 refugees that are in those 2 camps in the north, and they're not able to be accessed by these humanitarian aid workers. There was an incident back in December when UN workers were fired at by Ethiopian federal forces while they attempted to reach one of those camps. So obviously this, as well as just generally preventing aid from reaching civilians, are both violations of international law. And regarding those refugees, the Eritrean refugees, there have also been allegations of abductions and forced return to Eritrea against their will. And this would also be in violation of the international law on the rights of refugees. According to UNOCHA, which is the humanitarian coordination arm of the UN, the Ethiopian government has also blocked aid from reaching the majority of the population across the rest of Tigray. If you look at the map from Doctors Without Borders or MSF, you can see some of the areas where they have been able to make contact. But unfortunately, the access that most humanitarian, or really all humanitarian aid organizations have had, is only to areas that are firmly under control of the government. And those areas are predominantly towns lying along the main roads, especially the road that goes from Mekelle to Shire. And about 2/3 of the population is located in rural areas, so they're not able to receive any of this aid. As well as the alleged atrocities that are being reported against civilians. These are not verifiable because journalists and human rights observers also lack the same access. However, the UN Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide recently warned this week that the risk of atrocities in Tigray is high and will likely get worse. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, thank you. Some of the latest developments from the past week or so, the US government's Famine Early Warning Systems Network released its current map for Ethiopia and also a projection of the next several months, what they think it will look like in terms of the food crisis. And it shows more areas that are anticipated to switch from phase 3, which is crisis, over to phase 4, which is emergency. And that's the red areas that you can see. So the predicted phase 4 area for the next few months would cover almost all of Tigray if that prediction is accurate. And the conditions that contribute to the ongoing food crisis, many of them are conflict related and many of them are pre-existing conditions that are exacerbated by the conflict. So these include interrupted supply chains, lack of mobility, looting, the interrupted harvest, on top of the ongoing locust infestation issue and of course the pandemic. Recently, also, the International Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies made an appeal for emergency funding from donors, and they asked for about 47 million Swiss francs, which translates to 52 million US dollars, to meet needs across Ethiopia, Sudan, and Djibouti. And this is on top of funding that they had already diverted from their reserves. So they're now asking for increased aid from donors. And as Maggie mentioned, there was that call between Secretary of State Blinken and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, and the subsequent opinion piece that was published. And just to reiterate what Maggie said already, it's very difficult for us to know if this ongoing pressure from the US and the international community is perhaps leading to a shift in the conditions that we'll see on the ground. It's possible that Abiy Ahmed's statement that he wants the international community to get more involved is just rhetoric, or it's possible that that will lead to a shift on the ground. I think we'll have to wait to see what humanitarians actually attempting to do this work will report in the upcoming weeks. And with that, I will hand it over to Anna to talk about the broader country and regional context.
Thank you, Rachel. As she said, I'll be going over the conflicts in other Ethiopian states and greater Horn of Africa implications. So in late November, the European Union froze $109 million US in response to the conflict. The EU will unfreeze the funding if Abiy Ahmed grants full humanitarian access and ethnically targeted measures in hate speech and restore communication and media access in Tigray. Now, Africa democracy experts predict massive aid suspensions like this reduce private investment, which then deepens Abiy's crisis of legitimacy. Abiy Ahmed needs financial stability to maintain his office, and with fires burning in other states, his administration is open to other conflicts. So let's start in Oromia. Protesters formed ethnic nationalist movements over the summer, requesting more power in the government. In June specifically, the Oromia Liberation Front, OLF, accused the federal government of assassinating activist and musician Halachu Hundessa. Heavy protests broke out last week, notably students in Ambo are speaking out against Abiy Ahmed's administration and his imprisoning of political activists. Also in Oromia and SNNPR, locust swarms were swarming east of the Rift Valley and moving northwards. This furthers food insecurity in the Horn. In Benishangul Gumuz, there were ethnically motivated attacks in the Metakel district in January. Opposition politicians allege that the violence is due to a targeted campaign by ethnic Gumuz armed groups against members of other ethnic groups in the area, that's including the Amhara. A survivor of the attack said that he had counted 82 casualties and 22 wounded people. Finally, in Somali and Afar, 30 Ethiopian police officers were killed last month in clashes with Somali militia. The clashes are due to disagreements over land ownership in Afar in areas that are mostly populated by ethnic Somalis. Again, I'll reiterate, other states are undergoing conflicts, and that just further shakes Abiy Ahmed's administration's hold over Ethiopia. Let's go to the next slide, please. So looking to the broader Horn of Africa implications. In Eritrea, both Ethiopia and Eritrea are denying Eritrean involvement in this conflict, but several eyewitness accounts and reports confirm Eritrean attacks. Last week, the US even said that all Eritrean soldiers need to leave Tigray immediately. In Sudan, as you know, Sudan is sheltering approximately 60,000 Tigray refugees. Also, Sudan is Ethiopia's greatest export partner. So the country holds a lot of leverage. The Sudanese prime minister visited Addis in early December, and Abiy's office said the Sudanese prime minister supported the Ethiopian government's attack of Tigray. However, the Sudanese office hasn't released a statement that corroborates that claim. Now in Egypt, Egypt enters this conversation with the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, or GERD. Sudan and Egypt fear GERD will threaten freshwater resources to their citizens, and in recent months, tensions escalated between Sudan, Egypt, and Ethiopia. In September 2020, the US suspended a portion of this aid to Ethiopia as negotiations stalled. The three countries convened virtually in January and agreed to meet later this month, but they did not. Regional experts note Sudan could join Egypt in blocking the construction of GERD to pressure for a mediated peace in Tigray. In Somalia, Ethiopian troops were deployed from the Somalian border to Tigray. Somalis worry that they're vulnerable to terrorist group attacks from al-Shabaab. Now, I think I'm running low on time, so I'll just say yesterday, Abiy Ahmed announced road construction projects with Eritrea, Kenya, Djibouti, and South Sudan. These type of infrastructure projects bolster partnerships between the countries. Nevertheless, the Tigray conflict, married with tensions over GERD negotiations, al-Shabaab strikes, and locust infestations, shake Ethiopia and the greater Horn of Africa. So I would like to take a moment to reflect on my personal experience in Tigray. I'll just say, Dahandachum, Shemay Anna. I'm Anna, by the way. Beyond research with Notre Dame, I had the privilege of living in Raya, South Tigray, for nearly 2.5 years. Today, we've been talking about how to save the lives of friends and family in Tigray. This is a very hard and heartbreaking task, and HPN4Tigray confronts it every day. I've seen the members work well past midnight. I just want to share a positive reflection from my brief time in Tigray. Looking back, I didn't understand what community was until I was living in a town of nearly 1,000 people in Raya, Kebele Tacha'a Yibahal. I'm an American, and we culturally have the tendency to take care of ourselves and our families first. Over and over again in Tacha'a, I learned that that method of living just doesn't work. My neighbors actively went out of their way to maintain community, from taking turns hosting Tzeba Miriam to building strong Lumat Gujilatat, and every single day sharing Finjaltat Naibuna. I think foreigners like to say that Ethiopians have the best hospitality, but it's more than hospitality. It's knowing that strength is in community and cultivating that. My best friend in Tigray is an animal health specialist named Is HPN4Tigray. She would tease me that I was too cold and salty when I first came to town. She's the warmest person I know. I was at her house almost every day, and she was honestly so patient to deal with a cold foreigner who didn't know any Tigrinian or the Bahali. And all I want to do right now is call her and tell her that I love her for being my hafte. HPN4Tigray is a community with the hardest task in the world. This is a pledge drive, and there are ways to support HPN's efforts beyond donating money. As a student, I suggest spreading awareness on social media, joining online activism, protesting, and donating your time and labor. On hpn4tigray.org, there's a Get Involved page with specific ways that you can help. I want to thank you all for joining this community and working to ensure that hundreds of Kebeles and Ketemas are not lost. Thank you. Yakinele.
Thank you so much, Anna. That was great. I got a little emotional there. Again, just want to reintroduce myself, and for those that are joining, welcome to HPN Pledge Drive. This is a pledge drive, so please make sure you send in your donations to HPN. You could do it via Zelle, or you could shoot us a message and we'll take your pledge, or go on our website and hopefully the donate button is working. It is a, we just recently released our website. So as you guys understand, there can be technical difficulties, but please don't be shy to either raise your hand or send it in the chat box. You can go to our GoFundMe page as well. So there are many different ways. I just wanted to shortly say that. Again, my name is Sela Gabramesco. I am a team member of HPN. We are here. We are trying to achieve our objective. I guess I should go back to saying, how is HPN getting involved and how are we doing this? You know, as you guys know, we are trying to achieve our objectives by several ways. We are currently working with teams on the ground, mainly in Tigray and Sudan. Currently, we are partnering with MSF. We just recently added Red Cross as well as Operations Rescue. We're very excited to work with them as well, who are providing nutritional and basic medical care. Just a reminder, again, this is a pledge drive to help the people, our people in Tigray, and those that have fled their home seeking refuge in neighboring countries. We know NGOs are involved in supporting these refugees, and HPN is focused on unmet needs according to the needs assessment that we are given by these amazing heroes, doctors who are working on the ground. These NGOs have had a presence in Tigray prior to the conflict, and still they are restricted. I just want to say they are very restricted in providing humanitarian assistance to Tigrayans throughout the region. Our ask is to hashtag allow access to Tigray. We need everybody to please tweet, write your representatives, do what you have to do to amplify, hashtag allow access to Tigray. That is a big ask for you guys today. Please share it, share this hashtag along with the crisis, the humanitarian crisis that's happening in Tigray, in solidarity with the people of Tigray. The following speakers that I'm going to introduce are heroes. Most of them are first responders in the midst of this pandemic that the world is going through. Without knowing about the safety and well-beings of their families in Tigray and larger Ethiopia, they put their lives at risk every single day for us. We ask that you stand with the first responders and help them create awareness. The organization is made up of professionals and folks in the business sector, like myself. We have 45% of them are doctors. We have pharmacists, nurse practitioners, our amazing nurses, public health officials, just to name a few among the over 200 members we have at HPN. Just as important are the grassroots activists. And just to highlight a few, we'd like to introduce you to the three doctors that are going to speak just after me, and our amazing community activist. And she also has a podcast on Instagram. So I'll turn it to Dr. Balai.
My name is Dr. Elias. I am a kidney doctor here in United States. I grew up in Tigray at Tigray, which is not far from where Rishan grew up. We're a small world. When this war happened, it affected everyone at every level. And I can tell you, as a person, as a Tigrayan, this affected me so much. There was no time when I did not remember my family members. There were family members that I didn't see for a long time, but I wasn't able to talk to them for more than 2 months either. When I was trying to call them, there was no phone. And when we tried contacting them, we didn't know what was happening because of the state of emergency. Later on, when we started talking to them, we heard so many bad news. There were people from my neighborhood who died. There were so many people who also were hungry. And then many, many other people were not accounted for. And this is how we knew that the situation was very bad. The war in Tigray was particularly different because it happened out of nowhere, and it happened in all parts of Tigray. And it literally opened the gate of hell. People have to migrate for many, many hundreds of miles in short time with no food, with no money, with no backup. And I know people in my neighborhood that died from this. So this is a situation which did not give any time. We always say there is no wound that time does not heal, but now I know many Tigrayans do not have time to even survive. If we can reach out now, we'll be able to make a lot of differences. And this is where I joined the HPN for Tigray. They gave us purpose. We managed to do so many things, but I think if we can gather many hands, we can touch many souls, we'll be able to save many lives. I can tell you right now, by talking to many people, even after we send them money, they won't be able to pick it up because there's no banks. When they pick it up, they can't buy their medications because there are no medications. Pharmacies are looted, hospitals are closed in many places. So this is affecting us in many, many ways. This is a time where we have to fight for our souls. If we can come together, we'll be able to make a lot of differences. And thank you for making this happen. Rishan and the rest of crew members, you created an amazing crew members. I'm so proud to be part of this, and thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. My name is Hannah, but my family and friends call me Ruta. I'm the host and creator of the Uprooted podcast and a social activist. I was born in Sudan, like many of the others here on this call, after the last war and famine in Ethiopia. Sorry, Anna, you got me a little emotional. So as a diaspora living in America, I felt really disconnected at times. And I also really wanted to help my community here in the States and back home in Tigray. So I started the Uprooted podcast to kind of bridge that gap between those of us in the diaspora and those of us living back home in Tigray, with the hopes to connect us all. So when the war broke out, I felt an immediate pull to do something to help. As some of you know on this call, my father lives in Mekelle, so it was very deeply personal to me. And I had a sister, a Sudanese activist, that shared this quote during one of our protests that really explained what we're doing, right? We aren't born activists, but we have been activated. So there was a call deep in our spirits to get up and do something. So I joined several different organizing efforts as a member of Tagado's Professionals Network. They were able to help us all create one large group to do some activism work and organizing. What we decided to do was help create awareness about the cause through social media campaigns, Twitter campaigns, call banking, educational workshops, panels, and protests, as well as fundraising efforts similar to the one that you are all a part of right now. All of this because we wanted to help people, especially refugees, that are now experiencing the same story that I have and that so many of us have. HPN has been a blessing in this, in our movement, because we finally have an opportunity as a community to directly help our families in Tigray and in Sudan with health professionals that firsthand understand the struggle of what our people are going through, and what we haven't been able to do in the past is actually take care of our own. So there's something really, really powerful about having our own health professionals plan and organize caring for the people in such a holistic way, and building an organization that can serve in long-term sustainable ways. So I hope that you guys can all pledge to this amazing effort from the HPN team. And lastly, I'll leave you with this, that I know that this work that we're all doing feels really hard, but what it really is heart work. What we're doing is work from our heart. So please keep opening your heart and help our families in Tigray and join the movement in whichever way that you can. Thank you all.
Next up, we have Azad.
Hello, everyone. I think my video, I'm not sure if it is working. All right.
We can see you.
Yeah, it's okay. My name is Azib Aragawi, and I was born and raised in Addis Ababa. My parents, Wezaro Tarakach Bayena, Ato Aragawi Zadalo, they're both from Tigray. And I have 7 siblings, which 5 of them still alive. When did I travel first in Tigray? That was, I think I was in elementary school. I don't know if I was in 5th or 6th grade. My dad sent us to Tigray with my 3 other siblings. That's when I fell in love with Tigray. Fast forward, when I finished my high school, I moved to the Twin Cities to do my nursing. And I learned so much about Tigray and the war and the starvation. And I started listening and reading about that. So my goal was to just give back at some point, which I ended up doing, which I was fortunate. When I moved to DC, which I'm working at Children's National Medical Center as a nurse. I've done pretty much every area, but right now I'm a sedation nurse. So I'm still located in the Maryland area. So my goal is I was involved with TDA, which you see my young picture there, but I'm a lot older than these guys who are very energetic, productive, and no nonsense group, which I'm very, very honored to be part of it. So I still want to do some work. What made me join HPN is just November 4th, everything in my world has changed. It's in a very negative way, which I thought we addressed this issue in the early 90s and moved on, but we're still dealing with that. So hopefully, since this, I think I have positive thinking, because when we started in the 90s, there was nothing. It was after the war, the rehabilitation would, just from scratch. So think of this, the positive thing I think about this is already the infrastructure is there. To rebuild, it might be easier. That's my hope. And hopefully with this thing, I want everybody to collaborate with the other groups. So people, we have different, organization, and just, move it to the next level, and, pledge as much as you can. I think as Prime Minister Mallas said at some point, he said, we'll build our country with our nails. That means, it's not easy, but it could be done. The need is greater than ever. So I think that would be a good start for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Makta.
Hi. sorry, I'm still at work, but my name is Dr. Magda. I am a hospitalist in New York City. I work in Mount Sinai Hospital. I was born in Eritrea. I moved to Ethiopia when there was a war that broke out between Eritrea and Ethiopia. So this crisis, it's been really hard because this is not the first time that I am, I guess I'm witnessing war and how that affects you. It did when my parents had to move from Eritrea to Ethiopia because of the war. I still have trauma from that. My dad got arrested twice. There was some bombing close to our area, so it was a lot to take as a child. And I know it affected my family really badly because we had to move to a new city, to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. But when I moved to Ethiopia, I took that as my home. And so you can only imagine the confusion this crisis gave all of my family and my parents. I had some family in Mekelle too, and in Tigray that were affected. So I'm really glad that HPN exists because it really, the confusion, I cannot tell you how stressful it was when the war broke out. And I'm really grateful that I'm part of HPN and I can help people. And we're all, I feel like we're all on the right side of history because of this polarization. It's been hard for a lot of people to see that these are children and women that are being affected. And I guess I'm just glad that I am part of HPN, and I know HPN is it's sustainable. I'm very hopeful that HPN is gonna help in the long term with all the issues that we're gonna hear about and what we're hearing about so far. Thank you.
So much, Dr. Magda. Next is Dr. Gurmai.
Can you hear me? Not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you and see you.
Okay. This is Gurmai. I'm a graduate from Addisaba University. Then I have master's in public health in Sweden and residence in US. Right now I'm working in Richmond, Virginia. So I'm a part of, this organization, and I'm glad to have this networking. HPN for me is a fertile ground where I can be of help to my people. And I'm working mostly on the networking part and the clinical service. When I say the clinical service, it can also be, we are planning also to go there and give everything we can. So whenever we have access, me and my colleagues are ready to do anything that we can to our people. I think having said this, I'm really happy that we have this fertile ground to do everything we can with our capacity. And thank you so much. I'll put my pledge down there. And I think having said this, I'll just let the mic go. Thank you.
Dr. Gurmai, did you have a challenge?
Yeah, I mean, some of my relatives are living in Tigray, and I was not able to hear from them. At the same time, most of the medical doctors who are working in Mekelle are my friends. So it was really frustrating and challenging when I was not able to, hear from them. So the communication gap is really heartbreaking. So I'm looking forward any means, to get connected and, do my best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gurmai. I'll turn it over to Lala.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lol, aka Lala. We recognize us as HPN4Tigray. We recognize that gender-based violence is occurring in Tigray, and we have put together this video to shed light on the issue. And the contents might be disturbing for some of you, and so we welcome you to mute your video for the next 2 minutes, which is the length of the video, and thank you for helping support this cause.
I was forcibly taken away from my family and friends, let down by the river, and was given an ultimatum. The soldier said, "Choose, either I kill you or rape you." When I asked him if he had a condom, he simply responded, "Why would I need a condom?" He then forced his gun on me and raped me. This is the horrific account of a 25-year-old coffee seller after she fled to Sudan from the war zone region of Tigray, Ethiopia.
Historically, rape has been used as a means of terrorizing civilians and demoralizing enemy troops. We are concerned that this may be unfolding in Tigray today. The United Nations has received an alarming number of sexual violence cases in Tigray, where women are being reportedly forced to have sex with soldiers.
Sexual assault is a war crime and a crime against humanity. It should not be expected in any case, and that is not limited to whether it occurs in Mekelle, the capital city of Tigray, or out in the mountainous battlegrounds.
There is an increase in demand for emergency contraception and testing for sexually transmitted infections in Tigray, an indicator of sexual violence and conflict. However, humanitarian access has been restricted in Tigray by the government of Ethiopia, limiting the resources the rape victims need and deserve.
We support the Health Professionals Network for Tigray, a nonprofit organization led by U.S. healthcare providers, and we're calling for a zero-tolerance policy for crimes of sexual violence and unhindered access to aid being sent to Tigray.
Please follow, share, donate, and keep up to date with their effort to support the humanitarian and medical need of Tigrayans.
So I encourage people to shoot us a message at HPN4, the number 4, Tigray, TIGRAY @gmail.com with your email and your contact information, and then we'll share some of the contents from today's pledge drive. Help us, help them, help us, help our people. And before I get to the advocacy page, I know either Christina or Mr. Marciano, I think they've dialed in from Operations Rescue.
Marciano is not here. He is in Mexico right now. Hello. I'm Christina, his wife.
Great. Hello, Christina. So nice to see you. We'd love to invite you to kind of share your story. I know you've done so much work in Tigray, and I know your husband is in Tigray today. He flew from Sudan and to go into Tigray. You guys have been there for a long time, a very long time. So if you could give us just a 3 to 5 minute introduction, that would be amazing.
Thank you so much for having us. It's a privilege to be here and to hear how many of you are wanting to help your people. This is really great. Well, me and my family, we had the privilege to live in Mekelle from 1997 to 2003. And in those 7 years, we were able to start Operation Rescue in Mekelle. Our vision is to help the street children, orphans, children from very poor families, and we were able to start a day center in Mekelle. We started very small, and today there are about 500 children that are being able to benefit from Operation Rescue. In the years to come, we were also able to start in Adigrat and Adwa. So there are now 3 daycare centers in the area of Tigray. My husband, Marciano, he is in Mekelle right now. There is no internet connection. This is why he's not here tonight with us. He has been in Sudan for the past week he was able to purchase 1 ton of milk powder for the children. But unfortunately, the government did not allow him to go into the refugee camps. But he was able to send it with a local pastor that went to the refugee camp to distribute it. So we are very grateful having had the privilege of at least sending this ton of milk powder. I know that Operation Rescue will tomorrow, they will hand out children food to our families in Mekelle. And just before Christmas, the Red Cross has donated to Operation Rescue 40 tons of flour, which we were able to distribute just before Christmas, which was really, really a great present.
Thank you so much, Christina. And it's, you know, you guys are definitely doing God's work. And we know, you know, you guys are restricted in accessing the other parts of Tigray. And so, yeah, can you tell us, have you guys been able to access different parts in the rural area and what that situation looks like?
Marciano told me that cars are not allowed to drive out of Mekelle. So we were not able to go to Adigrat or to Adwa yet. We have food in our store for the projects there, but we are not able to go there. We are not allowed. We are trying all means possible, trying to push, to ask, to beg. So far, it was not possible. We are praying and believing that God will make a way. And there are many other people also pushing and asking.
Thank you so much. Thank you again for coming on and sharing your experience and your love for Tigray. I know when we talked with Marciano, he said you guys have been doing this for the past 23 years. It's extremely commendable. Yeah, and I just want to say, he started my emotional rant, by the way, you know, from sharing his story about, you know, orphan children has, yeah, and I think I haven't been able to recover yet. So thank you so much. And so the most important part from what you guys have heard from Christina with Operations Rescue and what we've been saying, I can't stress the need for the people of Tigray, number one. And if I, as Salah, can represent just a little bit, the thousands, the millions, we don't even know what the story looks like. If I could represent just even 1 kid, 2 kids, 10 kids, 30 kids, or the young women and children, I think I've done my job as a human of this world. And so I'd like to turn it over to Maggie Jonathan to speak to us about how we can get involved. Again, I want to say this is a pledge drive, so these people can do God's work. Please put your name down, send us an email, go on our GoFundMe page. Hopefully our website, I know there was a glitch in the donate me button, but hopefully it's up now. And please go ahead and make your mark. That's what we're looking for. And then on top of it, the most important piece, advocacy. Take it away, guys.
Thank you, Salah. So I think as we started earlier the conversation, advocacy is key here. And I think through the chat, I've been monitoring it. There's been definitely success stories that we're definitely seeing from some of the misinformation or disinformation that is also coming out. But through the advocacy work of many organizations that includes our own organization here, I think there's been a lot of folks that are actually truly seeing the facts. So, you know, advocacy is not a project. It's not just a one campaign. It's definitely going to be ongoing. The good thing is advocacy is also taken various different forms. So I'm going to let Maggie talk a little bit about some of these events, but if you're close to these live events, definitely participate, because the more that we are and the more solidarity I think people see, then there's definitely an impact and an action that comes out of it. And if you can't do it for any reason, certainly we understand. There's a lot of 45% plus members are physicians that are also working day in, day out, battling this pandemic. So we understand that, but what we ask is at least put in anything that you can do from an effort perspective to really amplify the message through your own social network, as well as really just outside of the digital world. You still have a lot of people that need to know this. And then lastly, I think the sustained advocacy, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we've been able to do, and we continue to ask the group. So Maggie, I'm going to let you take off with some of these events.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. And thank you to each and every one of you that have joined the call today. We are so grateful for your presence here and the financial support that you've given us so far. We hope that we'll be able to do really wonderful things in Tigray and for the refugees in Sudan as well. So as Jonathan said, advocacy doesn't end here, in 15 minutes when this presentation is over. We hope that you'll be able to take a lot of what you've learned here today, engage your friends and family members that might not know exactly what's going on. So we do have 2 live events, and we found these through the Returned Peace Corps volunteer petition that was sent to Congress just a few weeks ago. And the Associated Press actually picked up on that story, which is super encouraging. We are speaking and people are actually listening. So we really need to continue our outreach and communications in this way. So of course, given the pandemic, we want all of our members here and abroad to stay safe. But if you are able to attend either of these 2 regional events, the first in New York City on February 11th and the second in Seattle, Washington on February 12th, that would be fantastic. If you're unable to attend either of those events, there are 2 online events. One is actually happening as we speak. And so if you're feeling really invigorated and you want to hop onto that call, the State of the Horn, I just dropped the link in the chat for you to join there. And then Tigray Tuesdays, that is an online event hosted by a website called Clubhouse, and that link is in the chat as well. So keep tweeting, keep reaching out to your representatives. Use our Resist bot feature. You can text RESIST to 50409, and that will help you draft a letter to your representatives. It's a super easy way to let your reps know that you are concerned and you hope that they take action in this. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you so much, Maggie. I can't stress enough the power of advocacy. And I think that's what we're here for. That's what we're doing. Dr. Rashan, I know you're still, after, 12 hours or 14 hours shift, you're still on the call. So if you want to jump in and say something real quick.
Yes, thank you so much, Sala. Yes, I am post-night shift. My apologies. I've been quiet but attentive, very emotional. I know this means very close to our hearts, to most of us here. It means our families. It means I wanted to share earlier that I am from Adigrat and my entire family is back home. I have my older sister with kids, 4 kids with age under 10, and there are no food to buy. There are no medications to buy. My sister-in-law is pregnant. There is no access to medicine. There is no emergency care. And as a health professional, like hearing this and not being able to do anything about it is heartbreaking. It's beyond heartbreaking. I know it has been very difficult for all of us, but this somehow has been a little bit, I don't want to say therapeutic because we're not there yet, but a glimpse of hope that we can bring our brains together, our energy together, our money together, and try to save lives. So I cannot thank you enough for everyone for joining, for opening your hearts, opening your pockets, opening your mind to listen to the despair, to the cries of our people, our children, civilians, for God's sake, and that we take care of our own. You empower us to care for our own and become a sustainable organization and to continue to serve our people. So thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who participated. I know it has been such an exhausting week, countless hours and countless energy after work, like most of you, besides like Rachel, Maggie, like everybody in like business sector, but I also want to focus on the health professionals who are currently at work. You saw Dr. Girmay wearing his mask and his PPEs, and Dr. Makda and everyone. It has been a mental and physical exhausting few months, and I cannot imagine what the people are going through. So this is nothing for us. Even if we can save just one life, we will do whatever it takes. Like Dr. Girmay had said, we are ready to go and give our skills. We are ready to donate what we have. And thank you for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Rashan. Thank you, everyone. I hope this was informative, first and foremost, into the situation that's happening in Tigray, as well as from the humanitarian aspect of it as well. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next fundraising event. Thank you. Have a great day. Create awareness, create noise.